Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so local large language models are literally evolving faster than ever before. With Llama 5 hitting the scene, we're looking at a totally new frontier of what's possible. But, and it's a big but, that capability brings a massive new ceiling for hardware requirements. If you've been dabbling in AI, you definitely know the struggle. So today, we're exploring the ultimate blueprint for a custom, liquid-cooled powerhouse designed specifically for running local AI.
Now, be honest with yourself for a second. Is your local rig actually ready for Llama 5? Because if you want to run the full parameter versions of these massive models, and you want to do it without suffering through crippling latency or racking up eye-watering cloud compute bills, well, you're gonna need a lot more than just a standard gaming PC. You need a dedicated inference rig, and that is exactly the problem we're solving today.
All right, let's just lay out the roadmap for this explainer. We've got 5 quick steps today. First, we'll hit the Llama 5 power ceiling. Second, choosing the hardware arsenal. Third, taming heat with liquid cooling. Fourth, optimizing with vLLM software. And finally, number 5, the performance payoff.
Starting off with Section 1, the Llama 5 power ceiling, and really why standard setups just fail here.
48 gigabytes. Look, when it comes to running Llama 5 effectively, VRAM is absolutely our currency. It dictates the size of the model you can load up and how incredibly fast you could generate those responses. Standard systems, they might have 8, 12, maybe 24 gigs if you're really lucky. But to comfortably run these massive models, that requirement jumps straight to 48 gigs of high-speed VRAM. That's the target right there. And hitting it literally changes everything about how we have to design this machine.
Think about it like this. A gaming PC is basically a sprinter, right? It's built for these short bursts of intense graphical rendering and then it gets to rest. A dedicated inference rig, on the other hand, total marathon runner. It's built for a relentless 24/7 heavy load of non-stop mathematical computation. If you try to force a regular gaming rig to act like an inference server for Llama 5, those components are going to aggressively thermal throttle. Your generation speeds will just plummet because standard hardware simply cannot sustain that constant, unyielding pressure.
Which leads right into Section 2, choosing the hardware arsenal, the exact components for success.
Getting this architecture right from the foundation up is absolutely crucial. To hit that magic 48 gigabytes of VRAM, this build demands dual RTX 4090s. But here's the catch. You can't just plug two 4090s into a standard motherboard. They'll be completely starved for data. That's why we have to pair them with a Threadripper or Epic-class motherboard, just to ensure you get that proper PCIe lane distribution. Next up is power. AI inference causes massive transient power spikes, so we need a 1600-watt power supply unit to handle those split-second demands without your system just straight up crashing. Oh, and finally, you're going to need a massive PC case to fit the thick radiators required to cool this whole shebang down.
That brings us to Section 3, taming heat with liquid cooling. Time to defeat the thermal nightmare.
Look, traditional air cooling simply won't cut it here. The stock fans on those GPUs, it will spin up like actual jet engines, and honestly, they still won't stop the system from thermal throttling under a sustained LLM load. So, the solution requires full-cover water blocks equipped with active backplates. And I want to be super clear, this isn't just for aesthetics. This is a mandatory hardware upgrade if you want to maintain stable VRAM temperatures. And the reason for that is actually pretty straightforward. The VRAM chips located right on the back of the printed circuit board, the PCB, get incredibly hot during these LLM tasks. Standard air coolers focus almost entirely on the main GPU die on the front. They practically ignore the back of the card. So when you're cranking Llama 5, those rear VRAM chips are just baking. Active backplate water blocks solve this by routing cooling liquid directly over that rear hot zone. They are literally your primary weapon against throttling. Now, to make those water blocks actually work efficiently, we gotta talk plumbing. We need what's called a parallel manifold. Basically, this is a custom tubing setup ensuring both GPUs get fresh, cool liquid at the exact same time. If the liquid ran in series, meaning it goes through GPU 1, heats up, and then that hot liquid dumps right into GPU 2, well, that second graphics card would constantly run hotter. A parallel loop fixes that by splitting the cool intake liquid, feeding both of those 4090s simultaneously. It really all comes down to delta T. That's the temperature difference that has to remain completely stable across the entire system. By using those thick radiators we mentioned, along with the parallel manifold, neither GPU is going to suffer from thermal saturation. Your delta T stays perfectly flat, and guess what? That means your inference speeds will remain perfectly flat too, hour after hour, no matter how complex your prompts get.
Okay, Section 4, optimizing with vLLM software, the engine behind the hardware.
Because, let's face it, raw hardware is only half the battle.
Setting up the specialized software environment boils down to 3 really clear steps. Step 1. Installing a stable Linux environment, specifically Ubuntu, along with the necessary NVIDIA CUDA drivers. You need those so the operating system can actually talk to those dual GPUs. Step 2. Setting up vLLM and Hugging Face's Transformers library. Guys, vLLM is critical here. It heavily optimizes memory management and vastly improves your throughput. And finally, step 3 is testing. This means loading up Llama 5 and experimenting with 4-bit and 8-bit quantizations, just to squeeze out exactly how many tokens per second this rig can churn out without losing response quality.
And finally, Section 5, the performance payoff. Let's see the actual results of all this work.
When we look at the tokens per second output, it is eye-opening. The air-cooled setup starts strong, sure, but then you visibly see it dip as the VRAM heats up, and the hardware literally forces itself to slow down to prevent permanent damage. But with the liquid-cooled setup, the baseline is significantly higher right out of the gate, and more importantly, it is completely stable. It just keeps churning out tokens at maximum speed, simply because it never gets hot enough to throttle.
To put that into perspective, that translates to a massive 20% improvement. By completely eliminating thermal throttling with our custom cooling loop and those active backplates, we're seeing a 20% boost in sustained performance over standard setups. When you're generating thousands upon thousands of tokens in local AI, a 20% boost in sustained speed is an absolute game changer. It's literally the difference between a sluggish response and seamless real-time interaction.
So what we've really explored today is the ultimate blueprint for serious local AI. It definitely takes an investment, careful planning, and, well, a little bit of plumbing. But the results completely speak for themselves. The power is no longer just locked away in the cloud. It can be sitting right there on your desk. Which brings me to a final question for you to chew on. Now that you know the ceiling has been raised and you know exactly how to build the hardware to reach it, what models are you planning to run on your local rig? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep innovating.